So my role in the opera of Orontea is Aristea. Aristea is the mother of Alidoro, the disguised, unbeknownst to him and everyone else, prince, who becomes the love object of Orontea. And my part is, I don't know, it's a horny old lady. One of my students said, well, that shouldn't be much of a stretch, right? The beard will have to come off, of course. I have only the greatest applause and lauds for him. Actually, what's nice for me is that Craig and I worked really as colleagues in other people's ensembles first.
Okay.
So, and I think you asked me a couple of times at least, to direct first.
Yeah.
Right, and I couldn't because I teach, of course, at a small private college, and for opera you need a lot more weeks than I could take off. So during a school year. So it's worked out for me to do this year because I'm on sabbatical from school, which is a nice opportunity for us, in addition to the summer course, to be able to do a professional production together. I got into directing in a very haphazard way, kind of like how I got into singing countertenor and singing opera. Not because of any great design, but because I was scheduled. I had started singing lead roles, the title roles in the Göttingen Handel Festival with Nick Begigan. And Nick used to both direct and conduct. And one year he was so busy, I was scheduled to do Radamisto and the title role. And he said, would you think about directing next year? Because I'm so busy. And I said, and I went, yes. And then, of course, I made all the mistakes that people who don't know how to direct make, which is came way over prepared, with every finger crook worked out. And, unfortunately, I had really patient colleagues for the first 2 shows I did. I mean, people like Lorraine Hunt and Lisa Safer, who just kind of listened to me and then did their thing beautifully.
Wait, was that Ariodante?
No, the first one was Radamisto. Oh. And Radamisto, I had this, concept, the directing concept. They love that in Germany, right? Mm. But it was my mandate was to do Baroque there. That's what they wanted. They wanted Baroque. So we had Baroque sets and costumes. And sadly, I had decided that the first 10 scenes would be about this exchange of a letter, and Lisa forgot to bring it on in the first scene. So it never happened. So everybody just invented beautifully, and the audience knew nothing was going on, and I had white knuckles and went out to drink until the curtain. And it was fine, and nobody knew the difference. So that was when I realized that a director isn't really that important. We're more like a coach. But nowadays, theater has become, I worked with some strong directors, Peter Sellers, where there's a very strong concept. But a lot of opera that we see now, well, you know how it is. It's concept direction. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's there's like a video of Cape Cod, and meanwhile you're doing Trompeter or whatever. No, seriously. But that's very popular now, and I don't think that Baroque theater was thought of in that way at all. I don't think they thought, let's do the opposite. Right. Yeah. Let's deconstruct it and do the opposite so that people have to, swirl around in their head and figure out a solution. I think they believed in the narrative, and obviously, because of what you're doing here, you believe in the sort of what I consider the storybook approach, which is this, I think of it as children's picture books that open up and, you have another beautiful image. And if you can choreograph it in the way that the singers obviously knew how to act. They knew all of this gesture themselves. And really, from the books we have, from the stage managers, what they did was simply create, they just created where people were to stand and made sure that the order of how people stood on stage was correct. Or if it was incorrect, then there was a reason that it had to be rebalanced. Because all of these pieces, I think you'd agree with me, are about somebody has misbehaved, right? Or there's some problem of that kind, and that has to be solved so that everybody can go on in the social order as it's meant to be, right? There was a belief in social order, for one thing, right? Which we've lost some contact with, perhaps. So, people think of it as naive theater, and I don't think that's true. My experience is that people come to see Baroque opera and they love it because it actually does have values and order. My name, I do know it. It's Drew Minter. Still here after all these years.